Hello class, I received a question the other day kind of regarding the graphs, made a little bit about what they mean and how do you interpret them, how do you create them. So I figured I'd do a quick little lesson, quick little video on first off how do you create a graph and then how do you read a graph. So the format that I'm going to use is I'm going to use Google Sheets. This is one that I use quite often. I'm fairly familiar with using Google Sheets and how to make it work. So we're going to go ahead and create a couple tables using Google Sheets. If you see right here, we kind of have a schedule made. We have your input, output, total fixed cost, total variable cost, total revenue, average fixed cost, average variable cost, average total cost, marginal cost, and marginal revenue. This is, we only went down to 11 inputs, but this is kind of what you will need to be working with whenever you're actually creating these graphs. If you look, it really has all the things that I'm kind of asking for whenever you're actually creating these graphs. So what we're going to do is, one of the graphs I asked for is I wanted a graph that included total fixed cost, total variable cost, total cost, and I think total revenue as well. I'm not 100% sure on that right off the top of my head. But so what I have here is I have this schedule made up, and I want to make graphs using it. If you see, I have all of these listed in columns to where you have the label on the top and then all of the data going down. This is the way I prefer to do it. It makes sense to me and it's easy for me. So that's the way I'm going to go ahead and do it. So all of these graphs that deal with cost have two different sides to it. It has a vertical axis, which is dealing with price. Then it has a horizontal axis, which is dealing with output. So, because it has that horizontal axis that's dealing with output, we need to include this output column whenever we're making our charts. So, to make a chart using Google Sheets, you come over here and you're going to highlight everything that you want in it. So, I want all of the totals in there right now. So, I want everything from output to total revenue. So, you highlight all of that data. If it went down further, you'd highlight all of that. And you come over here and you say, right here it says Insert. You're going to say Insert Chart. Once you click on that, it's going to kind of pop up with all this, and it's really asking you kind of what kind of chart do you want. With me, I generally like to go to the chart types right here, and I'll click this second one. That's just kind of a personal preference. So it kind of shows what the chart's going to look like. And if you look, we have this total revenue, you have this total cost, then you have this total variable cost, and then you have down here your output, and then you have your total fixed cost. So whenever we're looking at this, we really don't want this output to be right here. The output shouldn't necessarily be a line on the graph, but instead it should actually be labels down here on this horizontal axis. But now that it's put this line in there, it kind of messes things up. Well, there's a quick and easy fix to that. You just say, use column B as labels. And now if we look, now we have this output down here. And this output, these numbers right here are going to correspond with this output levels that we see over here. So now we have our output down here, we have our prices, we have our total fixed cost down here, that's going to be a horizontal line. We have our total variable cost, which is going up, and then we'll actually see it sloping back later on. Total cost will do the same according to this schedule. And then you have your total revenue that's increasing at an axis just like that. And that's really what we want. So that's a graph done right there. Then you can go in there and you can customize it. You can add some more things. So we always want to label all of our graphs. So we want to say, maybe instead of saying TFC and TR, we're going to say this is just total cost curves. And the good thing about Google Sheets and Google Drive is it automatically updates everything as you're going through it. So then we want to label our horizontal axis. So we're going to label this axis down here. We're going to just type in output. Then we want to come over here and we want to say left vertical, and we're going to say prices. Or maybe we want to say, yeah, we'll just say prices. And yours may not actually have these exact labels. How you label them is up to you, and it needs to reflect what this chart is going to actually be saying. So that's kind of a done chart. Now, what if we, for example, don't need anything above, say, $50? We know for a fact that nothing else is going to happen above $50, so maybe we want to actually shrink this graph down. So if we look right here, we're still under left vertical, so we're adjusting this axis right here. Maybe we say the max price is going to be only, we're going to say $75. Then if you look, it automatically adjusts it. So maybe you have this really large graph that includes a lot of numbers, and a lot of the numbers are irrelevant. They don't need to be included in there. You can't really see your lines all that well, so you might need to rescale your graph. Well, using Google Sheets, that's how you'll do it. And let's say you don't want to come all the way out to 12, you only want to go to 9.5. Adjust it to horizontal, come down here, and you'll just say 9.5. Then you can adjust your graphs however. But maybe we don't want to adjust it, so we're going to go ahead and go back and just delete those two. And then we'll say insert. And now you have a good graph right here. And this should be actually one of the graphs that we're looking for, or a graph similar to what we're looking for. Now, I might be asking you to go ahead and put in another graph that's dealing with the average cost and then the marginal cost and marginal revenue. So we're going to go ahead and say insert a chart. And we're going to go through the same process as what we've done before, minus kind of making it look pretty. So we're going to go ahead and click that one. And now we have the marginal cost doing something funky over here that we don't really need. But we'll look at that in a little bit. And we have just all these lines right here. So, and if you remember last time we said use column G as labels. Well, if you look right here, column G is this average fixed cost. And by getting rid of that, then we got rid of a whole column of data we needed. But yet we don't have anything down here listing this output. Now, there's a quick and simple fix to that. If you run into a point in Google Sheets where you need output down here and it's not showing up, we're actually going to insert a column right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to cell reference this output label. So we're just going to say equals output, then we can drag it down. Then we can highlight everything again, just like we were going to create a graph. And we need to now that we have this outputs in there, we can go ahead and insert this graph like what we had done before, this chart. We're going to select the chart type we want, which will be this one. We're going to say use column G as labels. Because if you remember, we now made column G the output. You can see it right there. You have column G. We said use column G as labels. We now have the output. So we're going to go ahead and customize this. We're going to say this might be we might just call this cost curves. Granted, your labeling may not be exactly the same as mine. This is more of a quick little tutorial. So then we go into the horizontal axis, and we're going to call this output again. We'll go in there into the left vertical, and we'll call this prices as well. Now if we look at our graph, you see that it goes all the way up here to these high numbers, but yet we can't really see what's going on our graph down here. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to adjust this left vertical. We're never going to be producing where prices are less than 0. So first off, we're going to say 0 here. And we're going to have a max of $18 because there's really nothing else happening above 18 bucks. So now we can see it a little bit better, but yet we kind of have this funky marginal cost curve going on. So we're going to go ahead and insert this just for now. But if you look, you have negative marginal cost right here. And if you remember back, you're never going to produce at an output where costs continue to increase but output decreases. So if you look right here, this average variable cost, our average variable cost right here is going to be increasing but output decreases. You're never really going to produce where output is decreasing. And what I mean by that is as you add more variable inputs, what it's saying over here is we're adding more inputs and our outputs are decreasing. It doesn't make sense because outputs cost money, and it's basically saying that if you reduce the amount of, the amount of inputs cost money, it's saying that if you reduce the amount of inputs, you get more out of it. So naturally, you're never going to produce at that point. So we kind of have our graph right here kind of being screwed up because we have these negative marginal costs, and the marginal cost is something funky, and we're never going to produce here anyways. So what if we want to go back and edit it? So you go back to your graph right here, you click this little triangle. We're going to say Advanced Edit. And you come in here and we are actually going to adjust the data. So if you see right here is the data. So we really don't want to go from G1 to L11. We only want to go from G1 to L9 because, sorry, I did something a little off. Because after this ninth row, output begins to decrease. So we actually wanted to adjust this to say L9. We're going to update it now. Now we have a little bit more of a pretty marginal cost curve. We see that it decreases in the beginning and then begins to slope up. Everything's starting to look a lot better. We have marginal revenue here. We have marginal cost. We have your average total cost, your average variable cost, your average fixed cost, and we have all the cost curves there. So I hope this was a quick little video that kind of gives you a little bit more direction on creating these graphs and these charts. Kind of to go over these charts, what it is you generally have the prices on the vertical axis, you have the output on the horizontal axis, and how these graphs are really made is at every price level there is a corresponding output. So at output level 1 you have a fixed cost of 10, average variable cost 7.5, average total cost 1750. That output of 10.4, you have these corresponding values, and basically what you're doing is you're creating this graph and you're going in there and you're telling the computer to literally plot all of these. So what you do is you create this schedule first, and then you turn around and then you have the computer plot these out to where now you have a graphical representation of these curves, of what these cost curves really mean and how they all interact. So basically you create the schedule first, and then the graph is derived off of the schedule. So that way you can go in there and you can see where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Well, this is the profit maximizing output way out here at 12, or this would actually be closer to 13. So we could say that this is going to be right around 13.2, which we could actually go up to the graph right here and see where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. And we could say, all right, well, here's the profit maximizing output. We can see it on this graph at about 13.2. You can see that same amount. So I hope this helps, kind of give some direction on how to create graphs. If you've never used Google Sheets before, then maybe this is a good tutorial. You can also use Excel if you're handy with Excel, and you can do the graphs real easily on Excel. That's perfectly acceptable. It's actually encouraged if you're better at that. It's just whatever you work better with, as long as you can make professional looking graphs. Again, I hope this video helps. If y'all have any more questions, please feel free to send me an email and I will do everything I can. Glad the video's getting done because I'm running out of battery power. Thank y'all very much. Please let me know if there's anything else I can do to help.